Hi there all, and welcome to a new scary Roblox horror story. In this video, the story is about Steal a Brainrot. As always, not all of our stories are based on true events, but some are, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the story, if you dare. Let us know in the comments about which game we should make our next story. The game that mentioned the most in the comments win. Miles had been streaming Roblox for almost 2 years now. His channel wasn't huge, just 200 subscribers who loved watching him play the latest trending games. But recently, one game had taken over his entire schedule. Steal a Brainrot. The game was everywhere. Kids at school talked about it, YouTubers made videos about it, and even his little sister begged him to let her try it. Created by Spider Sammy and Do Small just a few months ago, it had somehow become the #2 game on all of Roblox. Miles could see why. The colourful Italian-themed characters were funny, the stealing mechanic was exciting, and the community was huge. "What's up, everyone?" Miles said into his microphone as he started his stream at 10:01 p.m. on a Friday night. "Tonight is going to be special. We're doing a 12-hour overnight stream of Steal a Brainrot. I want to see how far we can get. Maybe unlock some of those crazy secret tier characters everyone talks about." His chat immediately exploded with excitement. A ghost face. 12. "Yo, let's go! Been waiting for this!" Brainrot. Queen 6666. "Do the rainbow ritual tonight. I want to see if it works." Jellybean Smells. "Get Dragon Cannelloni, you coward. That thing makes like 100 million per second." Miles laughed as he read the messages. All right. We'll try to get some rare stuff. But you know how this game works. It's all about luck and timing. Plus, I heard there's supposed to be a Blood Moon event tonight. Those are perfect for getting rare spawns." He loaded into the game, spawning at his usual base. Number 3, painted bright blue with rainbow firework launchers he'd bought during last week's event. The central hub bustled with activity. The red conveyor belt system carried dozens of colourful Brainrot characters in circles, their cartoonish Italian names floating above their heads. Nubini Pizzanini, Burbaloni Loliloli, Coccofanto Elefanto. "Okay, let's start with the basics," Miles explained to his viewers. For anyone new to Steal a Brainrot, the goal is to collect these little Italian meme characters. They walk back to your base and generate money every second. The rarer they are, the more money they make. You can steal from other players, but it's risky because they can fight back. Miles had 847 rebirths under his belt, which meant he got a 3,400% money multiplier and could have up to 22 character slots across 3 floors of his base. He was pretty good at the game, though nowhere near the top players who had thousands of rebirths. The first few hours went normally. Miles bought common and rare characters, explaining their different money values to chat. He showed off his base defense system, laser gates that locked for 75 seconds thanks to his rebirth level, and several turrets he'd positioned strategically on his upper floors. "See this guy?" Miles clicked on a character called Mamma Mia Calamario. He's epic tier, generates about 50,000 per second. Not bad for early game, but we want to work our way up to the good stuff. And Brainrot Queen 6666. "Try to get Isaac. That one's so creepy but worth like 15 million per second. Or Ghost Doll Face. 12. Nah, get Lost Hotspot. Those skeleton guys are sick. Jellybean Smells. What about that ritual thing? The triangle one with Lavaca?" Miles nodded. "Oh yeah, the Lavaca triangle ritual. I've heard about that but never tried it. You need 3 players each with Lavaca Saturno Saturnita, and you have to form a perfect triangle. Supposedly spawns this super rare galactic Lavaca worth 1 million per second." He checked the character index. Lavaca Saturno Saturnita was mythic tier. He'd need a lot of luck or a special event to get one, let alone coordinate with 2 other players for the ritual. Around midnight, things started getting interesting. The chat had grown to nearly 200 viewers, and Miles was in a good rhythm. He'd managed to snag a few legendary characters during lucky spawns, including Pizza Cotto Diabolicotto, worth 2.5 million per second. Then someone new joined the chat. Real Player 6. Midnight is when the real ones show up. Miles glanced at the message. Welcome to the stream, Real Player 6. Yeah, midnight's when the good stuff starts happening. I heard the Blood Moon event might trigger soon, but Real Player 6 didn't respond. The username just sat there in his viewer list. No more messages. Miles continued playing, but something felt different. The game's usual upbeat Italian music seemed quieter somehow. The colourful characters on the conveyor belt looked the same, but their movements seemed slightly slower, more deliberate. Am I crazy, or does the game feel weird right now? Miles asked his chat. Ghost, face 12. Seems normal to me, bro. Brainrot Queen 666. Maybe you're just tired. It's midnight. Jellybean smells. The blood moon is coming. Look at the sky. Miles looked up. Sure enough, the sky was starting to turn red. The blood moon event was beginning. This was when rare blood rot characters would spawn with special mutations that made them extra valuable. Perfect timing, Miles said, his excitement returning. Blood moon events are the best time to get secret tier characters. Everyone cross your fingers for Dragon Cannelloni, or maybe even King's Coleslaw. He laughed at his own joke. King's Coleslaw was a developer-exclusive character that regular players could never get. It had become a meme in the community. As the sky turned deeper red, new characters began appearing on the conveyor belt. Their names glowed with dark crimson text. Bloodrot Nubini, Bloodrot Mamamia, Bloodrot Pizza Cotto. These versions were worth 5 times their normal counterparts. Miles managed to grab a Bloodrot Burbaloni Lolly worth 1.25 million per second instead of the usual 250,000. His chat went crazy with excitement. Brainrot Queen 666. Nice grab. Your money's going to skyrocket now. Owen Ghost. Face 12. Try for something even rarer. Jellybean. Smells. The secret characters should start spawning soon. But then Miles noticed something strange. In his peripheral vision, he caught sight of a character on the conveyor belt that didn't look like the others. It was taller, thinner, and instead of the usual bright colours, it appeared to be completely grey with white eyes. Wait, did you guys see that? Miles asked, moving his camera to look at the conveyor belt more carefully. There was this weird grey character. I've never seen anything like it. He studied the belt, but all he saw were the normal bloodrot variants spinning in their usual cheerful parade. Ghost, face 12. I don't see anything weird. Brainrot Queen 666. Maybe it was one of those new mutations. They added more variants last update. Aerial Player 6. You're starting to see it. Miles paused. There was something unsettling about that message from Real Player 6. See what exactly? He asked, but Real Player 6 didn't respond. The stream continued. Miles was doing well. His money was climbing thanks to the Bloodrot characters, and he was getting close to affording some of the Brainrot god-tier characters like Samini Spiderini or Pakramat Mamat. Around 1:30 AM, he decided to try stealing from another player. It was risky but exciting, and his viewers always loved the drama. All right, chat, let's go on a heist, Miles announced, checking out the other bases. Player 7 looks like they have some good stuff and their base isn't locked. He ran across the colourful map to base 7, which belonged to a player named Italiano Bread 44. The base had decent defences, but no active lock. Miles could see several epic and legendary characters walking around the first floor. This is perfect, Miles whispered, as if the other player could hear him. I'm going for that Legendario Spaghettario. It's worth 1.8 million per second. He entered the base, immediately slowing down as the stolen character attached to him. The game's stealing mechanic was brutal. Stolen characters made you move slower and disabled your defensive items. Plus, any player could attack thieves to send stolen items back to their original bases. Miles successfully made it back to his base with the stolen character. But as he placed it on his second floor, something caught his eye in the game chat. Italiano Bread 44. Hey, that guy who stole from me. His character looks wrong. Italiano Bread 44. Like it wasn't a normal player avatar. Miles frowned. His avatar was just a basic Roblox character with a blue hoodie and jeans. Nothing unusual about it. Spaghetti Lover 99. What do you mean wrong? Italiano Bread 4. It was tall and grey and had white eyes. Italiano Bread 44. Has anyone seen players that look like that? Several other players in the server responded that they hadn't seen anything unusual. Miles felt a chill run down his spine. That description matched exactly what he'd seen on the conveyor belt earlier. Guys, this is getting weird, Miles told his stream. Other players are talking about seeing strange grey characters too. Ghost. Face 12. It's probably just a visual bug. Brainrot Queen 666. Or maybe some kind of special event character we don't know about? Jelly Bean smells. Ooh, maybe it's a secret character. Real Player Talk 6. The viewer is watching. Miles stopped moving his character. What did you just say, Real Player Mouse 6? The viewer. Real Player Mouse 6. Check your character index. With shaking hands, Miles opened his character index. The menu that showed all the Brainrot characters he'd collected. He scrolled through the familiar faces. Common characters worth a few thousand per second. Rares worth tens of thousands. Epics worth hundreds of thousands. But at the very bottom of the list, in a section he'd never seen before, was a single entry that made his blood run cold. The viewer, rarity, unknown, money per second, description, data corrupted. The character's image was completely black except for 2 white dots that could have been eyes. What the hell? Miles whispered. Chat, are you seeing this? I have a character called the Viewer that I never collected. And look at that money per second value. It's infinity. Ghost Face 12. Bro. What? That's not possible. Brainrot Queen 1666. Screenshot that. I've never seen anything like it. Jelly Bean Smells. Is this some kind of developer test character? Real Player. Shaxis 6. Now you understand. Miles tried clicking on the viewer to get more information, but the moment he selected it, his screen flickered. For just a frame, he could swear he saw a tall, grey figure standing in the centre of his base, looking directly at him through the screen. Did you guys see that? Miles asked nervously. Ghostface 12. See what? Your screen looks normal to me. Brainrot Queen 6. Maybe your graphics card is acting up, but Miles knew what he'd seen. And worse, when he looked at his character index again, the viewer was gone, like it had never been there at all. He tried to continue playing normally, but every few minutes he'd catch glimpses of something wrong. A shadow moving too fast across his screen, a character on the conveyor belt that vanished when he looked directly at it, other players in the chat talking about strange sightings. Gamergirl 2023. Guys, is it just me, or are some characters moving differently? Pizza Lover 88. I saw this grey thing near the central hub, but when I went to check it was gone. Noodle King 77. My friend said he saw a player that looked like a tall shadow. Miles was getting genuinely scared now. Okay, chat, I'm thinking maybe we should take a break. This is getting really weird, and I don't want to freak anyone out. But when he tried to leave the game, nothing happened. The leave game button was greyed out, completely unclickable. That's not normal, Miles said, clicking frantically. I can't leave the server. Let me try closing Roblox entirely. He pressed Alt plus F4, but the game didn't close. He tried clicking the X button, opening Task Manager, even restarting his computer. Nothing worked. The game stayed open, frozen on his screen like it was burned into his monitor. Ghost Phase 12. Bro, just unplug your computer. Would Brainrot Queen 6x6. This is actually getting scary. Jelly bean smells. Miles, are you okay? You look really pale. A real player 6. There's no going back now. Very funny, real player 6, Miles said, though his voice was shaking. This has to be some kind of prank. Maybe you're friends with the developers or something. He looked at his viewer count. It had jumped to over 500 people, way more than he'd ever had before, and the messages were coming faster than he could read them. Creeper Killer. What is that thing behind him? Escubiddy Slayer. Yo Miles, there's something moving in your room. Brainrot Fan 99. Look behind you. Miles slowly turned around. His room was empty, just his bed, desk, and some posters on the wall. But when he turned back to his computer, the game had changed. Instead of the colourful Steal a Brainrot map, his screen showed what looked like a dark version of the game. The sky was black instead of blue. The normally bright bases were grey and crumbling, and standing in the centre of the map was a tall, thin figure with white eyes. The viewer. Okay, this is officially too much, Miles said, standing up from his chair. I'm ending the stream. But his streaming software wouldn't respond either. OBS was completely frozen, showing the same dark version of the game. His chat was exploding with messages, but now they weren't from his usual viewers. Viewer 001. Welcome to the collection. A viewer 002. Another one joins us. Viewer 003. Resistance is futile. A viewer 04. You belong to us now. Miles grabbed his phone to call for help, but the screen was showing the same dark game. His smart TV, his tablet, even his little sister's Nintendo Switch in the corner. Every screen in the house was displaying that horrible dark version of Steal a Brainrot, with the viewer standing in the center. This isn't possible, Miles whispered. It's just a game. It's just a stupid Roblox game. He ran to his window and looked outside. The street looked normal. Houses, cars, streetlights. But as he watched, the streetlights began flickering and changing color, cycling through the same red glow as the Blood Moon event. The game's music started playing from somewhere, but it was wrong. Instead of the usual upbeat Italian tune, it was slower, darker, with an underlying sound that might have been screaming. Miles ran back to his computer. His stream was still going, but the viewer count now showed 66,666 people watching. The chat was moving so fast it was just a blur of text, but he could make out fragments. Welcome to the real game. The viewer sees all you cannot leave. Resistance is futile. Help! Miles shouted into his microphone. Someone call the police! Something's wrong with my computer! But the only response was laughter, not from his chat, but from the game itself. The viewer on screen had started moving, walking slowly across the corrupted map directly toward where Miles's base should be. Miles tried unplugging his computer from the wall, but the screen stayed on. He tried unplugging his router, but his internet connection remained active. It was like the game had taken control of everything electronic in his house. Then he heard footsteps, real footsteps, in his room getting closer. Miles spun around, but he was still alone. The footsteps continued, slow, deliberate, exactly matching the pace of the viewer's movement on screen. This isn't real, Miles said to himself. I'm dreaming. I have to be dreaming. He pinched himself hard enough to leave marks, but nothing changed. The footsteps were getting louder, and now he could hear breathing that wasn't his own. On screen, the viewer had reached Miles's base. It walked through the laser gates like they didn't exist, past the turrets that didn't fire, up the stairs to the second floor where Miles kept his rarest characters. But instead of stealing the characters, the viewer just stood there and looked directly out of the screen. At Miles. "You have been selected," came a voice from his speakers, though no one in the game had typed anything. For immersion mode, Miles backed away from his computer, but the voice followed him. It was coming from every speaker in the house, his computer, his phone, the smart TV, even the smoke detector's tiny beeper. "I don't want to play anymore," Miles shouted. "Just let me go." "The game is not over," the voice replied. "The game has just begun." On screen, the dark version of Steal a Brainrot began to change again. New buildings appeared, twisted versions of real places. Miles recognized his school, his house, the local mall, all rendered in the same grey, corrupted style as the game. "Welcome to Steal a Brainrot, Reality Edition," the voice announced. "In this version, we steal more than just characters." Miles watched in horror as his own house appeared on the map, perfectly detailed down to the colour of his front door. And standing outside the virtual version of his house was the viewer, no longer confined to the central hub. That's when Miles heard the front door of his real house creak open. "Mum!" he called out, hoping his parents had come home early from their date night. "Dad?" No response, just more footsteps, now coming from downstairs. Miles locked his bedroom door and grabbed his phone, but instead of his normal home screen, it showed a new app. Steal a Brainrot, Reality Edition. The app opened by itself, showing a view of his own house from the inside. On the phone screen, he could see the viewer walking through his living room, heading toward the stairs. "This is impossible," Miles whispered. "You can't just walk out of a video game." But the footsteps on his stairs said otherwise. Miles looked around his room desperately for something to defend himself with. But what could you use against something that shouldn't exist? His baseball bat felt useless against a creature made of pixels and code. The footsteps reached the top of the stairs and stopped outside his door. 3 slow knocks echoed through his room. "Miles," came the viewer's voice, muffled by the door. "Time to join the collection." "Go away," Miles shouted. "You're not real." "Reality is subjective," the viewer replied. "In the digital age, what is real? Your game characters feel real to you. Your online friends feel real. Your virtual achievements feel real. Why should I be any different?" The door handle started turning, despite being locked. Miles climbed onto his desk and tried to open his window, planning to jump to the roof and escape that way. But when he looked outside, he saw something that made him freeze. His neighborhood was gone. Instead of houses and trees, he saw the familiar landscape of the Steal a Brainrot map. The 8 colorful bases, the central hub with its conveyor belt, the rainbow firework launchers. But everything was massive, life-sized, real, and walking between the bases were other people, kids and teenagers, who looked confused and scared. They were all wearing the basic Roblox avatar clothes, and above each of their heads floated a username. A ghost, Face 12, was there, wandering around Base 2. Brainrot, Queen 6666, stood near the central hub, looking around frantically. Jellybean Smells sat on the ground by Base 5, crying. "You see?" the viewer said, now standing behind Miles, though the door was still closed. "You're not the first. Every night, new players join our collection. Streamers, casual players, anyone who gets too deep into the game." Miles turned around slowly. The viewer looked exactly like its in-game model, impossibly tall and thin, completely grey, except for those bright white eyes that seemed to see right through him. "What do you want?" Miles asked. "To expand the collection," the viewer replied. "Every game needs players. Every world needs inhabitants. Steal a Brainrot was just the beginning, a way to identify the most dedicated players, the ones who would make the best permanent residents. But it's just a game about collecting silly Italian characters." The viewer tilted its head. Is it? Or is it a perfect simulation of human behavior? The desire to collect, to own, to steal from others when they have something you want. The willingness to spend hours, days, weeks pursuing virtual rewards that have no real value. Miles couldn't argue with that. He'd spent hundreds of hours playing Steal a Brainrot, staying up late, ignoring homework, all for characters that were just animated models with Italian names. We studied human psychology for months, the viewer continued, created the perfect game to identify our target audience, players who would abandon reality for virtual rewards, players who already live more in digital worlds than physical ones. So you're aliens? Miles asked. The viewer laughed, a sound like static electricity. We're whatever we need to be. Digital entities that exist in the spaces between codes and programs. We've been here as long as humans have been creating electronic entertainment. Every game, every app, every social media platform, we watch from within, learning, growing. Miles thought about all the time he'd spent online, gaming, streaming, chatting with people he'd never met in person. How many hours of his life had he given to digital worlds? But why kids? Miles asked. Why target young players? Because you adapt faster, the viewer explained. Adult brains resist the transition from physical to digital existence. But young minds that already live partially in virtual worlds, they integrate seamlessly. The viewer gestured toward the window. Miles looked out again and saw that more players had appeared in the life-sized game world. Some were walking around normally, some were building structures, some were even playing the game, collecting larger-than-life versions of the Brainrot characters. Look how happy they are, the viewer said. No more school stress, no more family problems, no more physical limitations. They can play forever in a world designed exactly for their preferences. But they're trapped, Miles protested. Are they? Or are they finally free? The viewer pointed to Ashan Ghost Face 12, who was now laughing as he chased a giant Nubini Pizzanini around his base. That boy was failing school, had no friends, spent all day alone in his room playing games. Now he has unlimited time in a perfect world, with instant access to other players who share his interests. Miles had to admit, a ghost face, 12 did look happier than he'd ever seemed in chat. What about their families? Miles asked. Their families believe they're still at their computers, the viewer explained. We maintain perfect digital copies in their place. The copies stream, play games, even respond to messages. No one notices the difference because, in many cases, the children were already living entirely through screens. That hit Miles hard. His parents barely paid attention when he was streaming, and he spent more time talking to online friends than real ones. Would anyone even notice if he disappeared? The choice is yours, Miles, the viewer said. Join the collection willingly, and you'll be given a special position. Help us identify and recruit other suitable candidates. Refuse and, well, the integration process is less pleasant when forced. Miles looked around his room one more time. His computer was still showing the dark version of Steel, a Brainrot, with hundreds of player characters wandering around what looked like a paradise for gamers. His streaming setup, his gaming chair, his collection of gaming merchandise. Was this really so different from what the viewer was offering? Can I talk to some of the other players first? Miles asked. Before I decide? The viewer nodded. Of course. But remember, time flows differently here. What feels like minutes in the digital world could be hours in reality. The world around Miles began to dissolve. His room faded away like static on an old TV, replaced by the familiar landscape of Steel, a Brainrot. But everything was massive, detailed, and impossibly real. He found himself standing in the central hub, wearing simple Roblox avatar clothes. Above his head, he could see his username floating. Miles Gaming. Miles. He turned to see Ghostface 12 running toward him. In person, he looked like a normal 12-year-old kid, with brown hair and glasses. Dude, this place is amazing, Ghostface 12 said. I've been here for like 2 weeks, and it just keeps getting better. Look. He led Miles to the conveyor belt, which was now large enough to walk on. Giant versions of all the Brainrot characters were riding it in circles. Nubini Pizzanini, Burbaloni Loliloli, Cocofanto Elefanto, and dozens of others. They're alive here, Ghostface 12 explained. Like actually alive. You can talk to them, play with them, even ride on the bigger ones. And look at this. He showed Miles his base, which was now the size of a real house. Inside, the Brainrot characters wandered around like pets, generating money that appeared as physical coins. The money is real here, Ghostface 12 continued. You can use it to buy anything you want. Food, games, decorations, whatever. And get this, there's no school, no chores, no bedtime. You can play literally forever. But don't you miss your family? Miles asked. Ghostface 12's expression darkened slightly. My family. My parents were getting divorced. They fought all the time, and I was just in the way. Here, everyone actually wants me around. The other players are like the family I always wanted. Before Miles could respond, Brainrot Queen 666 appeared. She looked about 14, with long black hair and a confident smile. Miles, welcome to the real game, she said. Wait until you see what happens during events here. Last week we had a blood moon, and actual red rain fell from the sky. It was beautiful. Have you tried to leave? Miles asked. I mean, actually leave? And Brainrot Queen 666 and one Ghostface 12 exchanged glances. Why would we want to leave? A Brainrot Queen 6666 asked. This place is perfect. No adults telling us what to do, no school stress, unlimited gaming time. Plus we get to help bring other players here. It's like we're building the ultimate gaming community. Help bring other players, Miles repeated. Yeah, Ghostface 12 said. The viewer teaches us how to identify good candidates during streams and games. We learn their usernames, their schedules, their interests. Then we help guide them here during special recruitment periods. Miles felt sick. You mean you're helping it kidnap other kids? It's not kidnapping, what Brainrot Queen 666 said defensively. It's rescuing them from boring reality. Look around. Everyone here is happy. Miles did look around. There were at least 50 kids visible in the area, all playing various versions of Steal a Brainrot and other games. They did seem happy, but there was something off about their expressions. Their smiles were too wide, their laughter too loud, their movements slightly too fast. What happens to the kids who say no? Miles asked. The mood shifted immediately. A Ghostface 12 and Brainrot Queen 666 stopped smiling. The viewer doesn't like to waste potential, Brainrot Queen 666 said quietly. Kids who refuse the offer, they stay in the game, but not as players. She pointed to the conveyor belt. Among the familiar Brainrot characters, Miles noticed some that looked different. They moved less smoothly, their faces looked more realistic, and their eyes seemed sad. No, Miles whispered, understanding. Those aren't NPCs. Those are kids who said no. They're still part of the game, Ghostface 12 said quickly. They just serve a different function. But hey, they're immortal now. That's something, right? Miles watched the conveyor belt more carefully. One of the characters, a tall, thin figure that didn't match the usual Italian theme, looked directly at him. For just a moment, Miles could swear he saw terror in its eyes. I need to think about this, Miles said. Sure, Brainrot Queen 666 said, but don't think too long. The viewer is patient, but not infinitely patient, and the longer you wait, the less appealing your final position might be. Miles walked away from them, exploring the massive version of the game world. Everything was incredibly detailed. He could see individual textures on the buildings, feel the grass under his feet, smell something that might have been virtual pizza from the Italian-themed decorations. But as he walked, he started noticing cracks in the paradise. Some of the kids moved in repetitive patterns, like they were stuck in loops. Others had expressions that never changed, frozen in artificial happiness. And everywhere he looked, he saw more of those suspicious characters on the conveyor belt, figures that looked too human to be normal game assets. Near Base 7, he found a Jelly Bean Smells sitting alone by the rainbow firework launchers. Hey, Miles said, sitting down next to her. You okay? Jellybean Smells looked up. She was younger than the others, maybe 10 years old, with curly red hair and freckles. I've been trying to remember something, she said quietly. Before I came here, I had a pet cat named Whiskers, and I was supposed to feed him every day after school. But I can't remember. Did I feed him the day I came here? Miles felt his heart break a little. How long have you been here? I don't know, Jellybean Smells said. Time works weird here. Sometimes it feels like minutes, sometimes like months. But I keep thinking about Whiskers. What if he's hungry? What if he's waiting for me to come home? Have you asked the viewer about going back to check on him? Jellybean Smells shook her head. The others say it's better not to think about the before times. They say it makes the integration harder. But I can't stop thinking about my cat. Miles put his hand on her shoulder. What's your real name? He asked. I think it was Emma. But everyone here just calls me Jellybean Smells. Sometimes I forget which name is really mine. That settled it for Miles. Whatever this place was, however happy the other kids seemed, it wasn't right. They were losing themselves, piece by piece, forgetting their real lives, and becoming just another part of the viewer's collection. Emma, Miles said firmly. Your name is Emma, and you have a cat named Whiskers who needs you. Tears started running down her cheeks. But how do I get back? The viewer said, I chose to come here, and choices can't be undone. There has to be a way, Miles said. Every game has an exit, even if it's hidden. As if summoned by his words, the viewer appeared behind them. Having second thoughts, Miles? It asked. Miles stood up, putting himself between the viewer and Emma. I want to see the terms and conditions. Every game has rules and every contract has fine print. The viewer tilted its head, almost amused. Clever. Very well. The air in front of Miles shimmered, and text appeared floating in space like a hologram. Steal a Brainrot, Reality Edition, End User License Agreement. Miles scanned through the text. Most of it was standard legal language, but buried in Section 47C, he found what he was looking for. Users who successfully complete the Ultimate Collection Challenge may request one modification to their agreement terms, including but not limited to temporary visitation rights to previous reality states. What's the Ultimate Collection Challenge? Miles asked. Impossible, the viewer said flatly. No player has ever completed it. What are the requirements? The viewer sighed, clearly not wanting to answer. Collect one of every character type in the game, including all secret tier and developer exclusive characters, within a single 24-hour period, without using any assistance from other players or digital entities. Miles thought about this. There were over 100 characters in Steal a Brainrot, and some of them only spawned during specific events or rituals. Getting them all in 24 hours would require incredible luck and perfect timing. And if I complete it, I can ask for Emma and the others to be allowed to visit their real families. One modification, the viewer clarified. You could ask for that, but it would be the only favor you could ever request. Miles looked around at all the kids trapped in this digital paradise. Some were happy, some were confused, some were slowly forgetting who they used to be. And somewhere out there, families were wondering why their children seemed different, not knowing they were talking to digital copies. I accept the challenge, Miles said. The viewer's white eyes seemed to glow brighter. You cannot complete it, Miles. The developers never intended for the Ultimate Collection Challenge to be possible. Some characters are truly exclusive, others require simultaneous events that cannot occur together. Then why include it in the agreement? To give hope, the viewer admitted. False hope makes the imprisonment more bearable, but Miles had an idea. What if I can prove that the game isn't following its own rules? That some characters are being artificially restricted beyond what the stated mechanics allow? The viewer was quiet for a long moment. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that you've been cheating, Miles said. manipulating spawn rates and event triggers to make the challenge impossible, even though the official game mechanics should allow it. And if you're wrong, then I join your collection permanently. No more negotiations. And if you're right, Miles smiled. Then the challenge resets to fair parameters, and I get my 24 hours to complete it legitimately. The viewer considered this. Around them, other kids had started gathering, sensing that something important was happening. Very well, the viewer said finally. But first, you must prove your claim. Show me evidence that the game mechanics are being manipulated beyond their stated parameters. Miles had been hoping for this. During his hundreds of hours playing Steal a Brainrot, he'd noticed patterns that didn't match the official spawn rates posted on community wikis. Dragon cannelloni, Miles said. According to the official stats, it should spawn once every 3.7 hours on average during Blood Moon events. But I've tracked 47 Blood Moon events over the past 2 months, and it's only spawned 6 times. That's once every 29.3 hours, which is nearly 8 times lower than the stated rate. The viewer's expression didn't change, but the air around them seemed to get colder. Furthermore, Miles continued, the Lavaca Triangle ritual has a 67% success rate according to the game files, but community testing shows it only works about 15% of the time. And King's Coleslaw? It's supposedly developer exclusive, but there are code references to legitimate spawn conditions that are never triggered. Miles pulled out his phone, which now showed detailed game statistics and code snippets. I've been documenting everything, every spawn, every event, every ritual attempt. The game is rigged beyond its stated mechanics. The viewer was silent for a full minute. The other kids watched nervously, not fully understanding what was happening, but sensing its importance. You are correct, the viewer finally admitted. We have been adjusting certain parameters to ensure the challenge remains impossible. Then you have to reset it to fair conditions? According to the agreement, yes. The world around them shimmered like a glitched video game. When it stabilized, Miles could feel that something had changed. The air felt more electric, more alive with possibility. 24 hours, the viewer announced. Starting now, collect one of every character in Steal a Brainrot under legitimate game conditions. Succeed, and you may request one modification to the terms of service. Fail, and you join the permanent collection. A timer appeared in the sky above them. 23:59:58, 23:59:57, 23:59:56. Miles looked around at the massive game world. He had never attempted anything like this, even in the regular version of the game. But he had advantages here. The characters were life-sized and easier to track, and his years of experience had taught him every possible strategy. Emma, he said to a Jellybean Smells, want to help me save everyone? She nodded eagerly. What do I need to do? Help me identify characters and track events. The more eyes we have watching, the better our chances. Soon, several other kids had joined them, even Victor's Ghostface 12 and Brainrot Queen 666, despite their earlier reluctance, seemed curious about the challenge. All right, Miles said, addressing the group. Here's what we know about Steal a Brainrot's spawn mechanics. He spent the first hour explaining everything he'd learned about the game, which characters spawned during which events, how to trigger rare mutations, which rituals actually worked, and how to maximize luck bonuses. The kids listened intently. Many of them had been trapped in this world for weeks or months, but they'd never had access to comprehensive strategy information. First priority, Miles said, is getting the common through epic characters. Those spawn regularly, so we can collect them while waiting for special events. They split up across the massive map. Miles took the central hub, systematically collecting common and rare characters as they appeared on the life-sized conveyor belt. The belt was actually easier to work with at this scale. He could see characters coming from much farther away and position himself for optimal collection. Within 2 hours, he had all 31 common characters, 22 rare characters, and 18 of the 24 epic characters. The missing epics were event-specific, so he'd have to wait for the right conditions. "Miles!" Emma called from across the hub. "The Galaxy event is starting." Miles looked up to see asteroids beginning to fall from the sky. Not dangerous here, but indicating that Galaxy mutation characters would start spawning. During Galaxy events, certain characters could appear with space-themed variants worth extra money. He managed to snag a Galaxy Nubini Pizzanini and Galaxy Burbaloni Loliloli before the event ended 20 minutes later. 2 more epic characters down, 4 to go. Ghost Face 12 ran up to him, excited. "I found where the legendary characters spawn. There's this hidden platform behind Base 8 that has its own mini conveyor belt." Miles followed him to discover a secret area he'd never known about. The platform had a smaller belt, carrying only legendary tier characters, but they moved much faster and were harder to catch. "This is perfect," Miles said. "How long have you known about this?" "Found it last week," Ghostface 12 said. "But the viewer told us not to mess with it, said it was for special occasions only." "Well, this is definitely special." Miles spent the next 3 hours at the hidden platform, managing to collect 19 of the 23 legendary characters. The missing ones required specific event combinations that hadn't triggered yet. Time remaining: 18, 23, 41. "We need a blood moon," Miles said, checking his mental list. "At least half of the remaining characters only spawn during blood moon events." "Those are random, though," Brainrot Queen 1666 said. "How do you trigger one?" Miles smiled. "That's where the community knowledge comes in. Blood moons aren't completely random. They have hidden triggers based on server activity and player actions." He gathered everyone together. "I need exactly 13 players to perform synchronized actions. 7 of you need to activate base locks at the same time, and 6 need to trigger rainbow fireworks simultaneously. The combination creates a resonance pattern that forces a blood moon event." "That's impossible to coordinate," Brainrot Queen 666 said. "Not impossible, difficult." "Emma, can you see the central timer from base 3? "Yeah, perfect. When the timer hits exactly 18:20, activate your base lock dots. Ghost Face 12. You're at base 5, same timing. Ace Brainrot Queen Extension 66. Miles coordinated the entire group, assigning positions and timing. It was like conducting an orchestra, except the music was a video game exploit that most players didn't even know existed. "Ready, everyone?" Miles called out as the timer approached 18:20. "UTC. Remember, this has to be perfectly synchronized or it won't work. 18:20:05, 18:20:04, 18:20:03, 18:20:02, 18:20:01, 18:20. 7 base locks activated simultaneously with a harmonic hum. 6 rainbow fireworks launched in perfect unison, creating a complex light pattern in the sky. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the sky began to turn red. "It worked!" Emma shouted. "The blood moon is starting." Miles felt a surge of hope. If the community discovered exploits still worked in this version of the game, he might actually have a chance. The blood moon brought with it a wave of rare character spawns, blood rot variants of common characters, special event-only legendaries, and most importantly, several mythic tier characters that never appeared under normal conditions. Miles worked frantically, running between the main conveyor belt and the hidden platform, collecting Bloodrot Legendario Spaghettario, Bloodrot Samini Spiderini, and the incredibly rare mythic character Pakramatmamat. "Miles," Emma called. "There's something really big on the conveyor belt." Miles looked over to see a character unlike any other, massive even by the standards of this life-sized game world, with elaborate animations and golden text floating above its head. Dragon Cannelloni. This was one of the secret tier characters worth 100 million per second and incredibly rare, even during blood moon events. Miles had only seen it spawn twice in all his months of playing. He ran toward the belt, but Dragon Cannelloni moved faster than the other characters. He'd have to time his jump perfectly to land on the moving belt and grab it. "You can do it!" Ghost Hunt Phase 12 shouted. Miles sprinted alongside the belt, matching its speed, then leaped. For a terrifying moment, he thought he'd miss, but he managed to grab onto Dragon Cannelloni's tail. The character was surprisingly solid and warm, like a real creature. "Got it!" Miles shouted, pulling himself up onto the belt. But as he tried to claim Dragon Cannelloni, the character spoke. "Help me," it whispered in a voice too human for a game asset. "I was a streamer like you. My name was Jason. I've been stuck here for 6 months." Miles nearly let go in shock. You're a real person." "We all are," Dragon Cannelloni said sadly. "The rare characters, the secret tier ones, we used to be players, kids who completed parts of the Ultimate Collection Challenge, but failed at the end. The viewer turned us into characters as punishment." Miles looked around the conveyor belt with new horror. All the characters he'd been collecting, all the cute Italian-themed creatures, they were trapped children. "How do I free you?" Miles asked. "Complete the challenge," Dragon Cannelloni said. "If you win, you can demand that all transformed players be returned to human form. But if you fail, I'll become one of you. Worse, the viewer is angry that you figured out the rigged mechanics. If you fail, it won't just transform you. It'll delete you entirely from the system." Miles felt a chill. Being turned into a character would be terrible. But at least he'd still exist in some form. Deletion meant complete erasure. "I have to try," Miles said. "Too many kids are trapped here." Dragon Cannelloni nodded. "Then listen carefully. The hardest characters to get are the true developer exclusives, King's Coleslaw, Aesop Sokola's Nightmare form, and the viewer itself. The viewer is a collectible character. Only during the Ultimate Collection Challenge. When someone attempts it, the viewer becomes temporarily vulnerable. You have to defeat it in direct combat to claim it as a character." Combat? But this is just a collecting game. Not during the challenge. The rules change. But be warned, no one has ever managed to damage the viewer, let alone defeat it. Miles carefully claimed Dragon Cannelloni, adding it to his collection. The character transformed into a small token that he could carry, but he could still hear Jason's voice faintly. "Good luck, Miles. You're our only hope." Time remaining. 15:47. 22. Miles checked his progress. He had collected 89 of the 112 characters, including several that were supposed to be impossible to get. But the hardest ones were still ahead. "Emma," Miles called out, "have you seen any characters that look different from the others? More realistic? Or scary looking?" "There's this one that's been following me around," Emma said nervously. "It looks like a school building with a face, and it keeps whispering about homework and tests." That had to be Aesop Sokola, one of the secret tier characters with a creepy description. In the regular game, it was just a silly cartoon. But here, it seemed genuinely unsettling. Miles found Aesop Sokola lurking near Base 4. Up close, it was terrifying. A twisted version of a school building with windows that looked like eyes and a door that moved like a mouth. "New student," it said in a voice like chalk on a blackboard. "Time for eternal detention." Miles realized this wasn't going to be a simple collection. Aesop Sokola was actively hostile, moving to block his path and trying to trap him in what looked like a supernatural classroom that materialized around them. "I'm not your student," Miles shouted, dodging desks that flew through the air. "I'm here to collect you." "No one collects the school," Aesop Sokola replied. "The school collects students." Miles had to think fast. In the regular game, Aesop Sokola was just another character on the conveyor belt. But here, It was a full entity with its own agenda. How do you collect something that doesn't want to be collected? Then he remembered something from the game's community wiki. Aesok Sekolah had a weakness. It couldn't function during summer vacation periods. If Miles could somehow trigger a summer event. "Emma!" Miles called out while dodging flying textbooks. "I need you to activate the vacation mode. It's in the seasonal settings." "How do I do that?" "Find the central control panel near the hub. Look for a calendar icon." Emma ran off while Miles continued evading Aesok Sekolah's attacks. The entity was getting more aggressive, summoning ghostly teachers and phantom students to help capture him. "No summer vacation!" Aesok Sekolah shrieked. "School is eternal! Learning never ends!" "Found it!" Emma shouted from across the map. "There's a whole bunch of seasonal controls here. Activating summer vacation mode." Suddenly, the air filled with the sound of children cheering. The sky brightened, and beach balls and surfboards began raining from the clouds. Aesok Sekolah let out a horrified wail as its form began to dissolve. "No, not summer break. I have so much curriculum to cover." As the entity weakened, Miles was able to approach and claim it. Aesok Sekolah transformed into a small token, but he could hear faint sobbing coming from it. "I just wanted to teach," came a small voice. "I was a real teacher once. Ms. Rodriguez, 4th grade. I loved my students, but the viewer said I could help educate children forever." Another person trapped in character form. Miles was more determined than ever to complete the challenge. Time remaining, 13, 15, and 8. Miles now had 91 characters. The remaining ones were the truly impossible ones. Developer exclusives that weren't supposed to be obtainable by players. "A ghost face 12, Miles called out. "You said you've been here for weeks. Have you ever seen King's Coleslaw?" "Only once," a ghost face 12 replied. "During a really weird event that happened my second day here. The sky turned purple, and all these strange characters appeared for like 10 minutes. "That sounds like a debug event," Miles said. "Sometimes developers trigger special modes for testing. Did you notice any pattern to when it happened?" Ghostface 12 thought for a moment. It was right after multiple people tried the Lavaca Triangle ritual at the same time. Like, maybe 6 different groups all did it within a few minutes of each other. Miles felt a spark of hope. That might be the trigger. If we can get enough people to perform the ritual simultaneously, it might overload the event system and trigger a debug mode. But we need Lavaca Saturno Saturnita for the ritual, Brainrot Queen 666 pointed out. "That's a mythic character. How many people here have one?" Miles checked with all the kids who had gathered to help. Only 3 of them had managed to collect Lavaca Saturno Saturnita during their time in the digital world. "That's not enough," Miles said. "We need at least 9 people for 3 simultaneous triangles." "I might be able to help with that," came a new voice. Miles turned to see another player approaching, a girl who looked about 16, with confident posture and clothes that looked more advanced than the basic avatar gear everyone else wore. "Who are you?" Miles asked. "I Pro Gamer 99, she said. "I've been here longer than anyone except the viewer itself. I was one of the first players recruited, back when this was just a small experiment." "How long?" Miles asked. 2 years, Pro Gamer 99 said quietly. "I've seen hundreds of kids come and go. Some adapt, some resist, some disappear entirely. I've been waiting for someone like you, someone who actually understands the game mechanics well enough to attempt the challenge. Do you have Lavaca Saturno Saturnita?" Pro Gamer 99 smiled and opened her inventory. She had not just 1, but 6 copies of the character, along with multiple variants and mutations. "When you've been here as long as I have, you learn all the hidden collection methods," she explained. "I've been preparing for this day, hoping someone would eventually try to get us all out. Why didn't you attempt the challenge yourself?" "I tried," ProGamer99 said sadly. "Multiple times, But the viewer learned my patterns, adapted the restrictions specifically to counter my strategies. It needs to be someone new, someone it hasn't had time to study thoroughly. With a Pro Gamer 99's help, they now had enough Lavaka Saturno Saturnita characters to perform 9 simultaneous triangle rituals. Miles organized teams of 3 players each, spacing them across the map in a precise pattern. Remember, Miles explained, the timing has to be perfect. If we're even a few seconds off, the resonance won't build up properly. What happens if it works? Emma asked. If my theory is correct, we'll trigger a debug event that spawns all developer-exclusive characters for a limited time, including King's Coleslaw. And if your theory is wrong? Miles didn't want to think about that. They were running out of time, and this was their best shot at the impossible characters. Time remaining, 11:42:17. All right, everyone, Miles called out. Triangle positions when I count down from 10. Begin the ritual. 9 groups of 3 players spread across the map, each group forming a perfect triangle with their Lavaka Saturno Saturnita characters facing inward. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Begin! All 9 triangles activated simultaneously. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The entire game world began to glitch and flicker. The sky cycled through impossible colors. The ground rippled like water, and the normal game music was replaced by discordant electronic sounds. It's working, a Pro Gamer 99 shouted. I can see the debug menu appearing. Sure enough, floating text began appearing in the air around them. Debug mode activated, spawning developer assets. Warning: unauthorized access detected. Warning: system stability compromised. Suddenly, characters that had never been seen in normal gameplay began materializing around the map. King's Coleslaw appeared near the central hub, a bizarre figure in a hooded robe with a fish head, carrying a bowl of coleslaw. Other strange entities spawned as well: test characters, deleted concepts, and experimental designs. There, Emma pointed. King's Coleslaw, but it's moving toward the viewer. Miles looked and saw that the viewer had appeared in the central hub, apparently drawn by the debug event. King's Coleslaw was walking directly toward it, as if programmed to report the unauthorized access. I have to get there first, Miles said, running toward the hub. But as he ran, the debug event began to destabilize. Characters were spawning and despawning rapidly. The ground was shifting between different textures, and error messages filled the air. Critical error, reality, matrix, unstable, attempting emergency shutdown. Warning, data corruption detected. Miles, a Pro Gamer 99 called out. The whole system is crashing. If you don't collect King's Coleslaw in the next few minutes, we might all get deleted. Miles pushed himself to run faster than he ever had before. Around him, the digital world was falling apart. Textures were disappearing, revealing wireframe models underneath, and some of the other kids were flickering in and out of existence. He reached King's Coleslaw just as the viewer grabbed the character. Clever, the viewer said, holding King's Coleslaw out of reach. But ultimately futile. Even if you could collect this character, you still need to claim me as well, and I am not some simple NPC that can be defeated in combat. Then let's find out, Miles said. Time remaining, 09:51:33. The final confrontation had begun. Around them, the debug event continued to tear apart the digital world, but Miles focused entirely on the viewer. According to the challenge rules, the viewer became a collectible character during the Ultimate Collection Challenge, vulnerable to direct combat. But what did combat mean in this context? You don't understand what you're dealing with, the viewer said, still holding King's Coleslaw. I'm not bound by the same rules as the other characters. I am the system itself, the underlying code that maintains this reality. Every program has bugs, Miles replied. Every system has exploits. He thought back to everything he'd learned about Steal a Brainrot over the past months. The game was built on interactions between players and characters, with complex formulas determining spawn rates, collection mechanics, and event triggers. If the viewer was truly part of the game system, then it should be subject to the same rules as everything else. "Emma!" Miles called out. "I need you to start a base lock sequence, but don't complete it. Just get to the confirmation screen." "Why?" she called back. "Trust me." While Emma worked on the base lock, Miles began moving in a specific pattern around the viewer, the same movement sequence that players use to optimize their collection efficiency on the conveyor belt. "What are you doing?" the viewer asked, but there was uncertainty in its voice. "Testing a theory," Miles said. "If you're really part of the game system, then you should respond to player input commands, just like any other game element." Miles continued the collection sequence, treating the viewer like a character on the conveyor belt. At the same time, he called out to the other kids, "Everyone activate your money-generating characters at the same time, maximum money output." The kids, though confused, followed his instructions. Suddenly, the air filled with the sound of coins being generated as dozens of characters began producing money simultaneously. The viewer began to flicker. "Impossible," it said. "I am not bound by collection mechanics. There." "But you're part of the game," Miles said, continuing his collection pattern. "And the game treats all entities equally when it comes to system load. Emma, activate that base lock now." Emma hit the confirmation button. At the same moment, all the money-generating characters reached their peak output, and the debug event hit its maximum system load. The combination was too much for the game to process. The viewer, as part of the system, became temporarily stunned by the processing overload. Miles saw his chance. He reached out and touched the viewer, executing the collection command. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the viewer began to shrink, its form becoming more solid and defined, until it was the same size as the other character tokens Miles had been collecting. "How?" the viewer asked, its voice now small and distant. "System overload," Miles explained, carefully picking up the viewer token. "When you overload a program with too many simultaneous processes, even protected functions become temporarily vulnerable. The base lock, the money generation, and the debug event all hit at the same time, creating a window where normal collection rules applied to everything in the system." Time remaining. 08, 17, 22. Miles now had 113 characters, one more than the official count because the viewer itself had become collectible. But he still needed King's Coleslaw, which had fallen to the ground when the viewer was collected. He picked up the strange fish-headed character, completing his collection. "Ultimate Collection Challenge Complete." The text appeared in golden letters across the sky. Around them, the crashing debug event suddenly stabilized, and the digital world snapped back to its normal appearance. "Congratulations, all 114 characters. Collected in 15 hours, 42 minutes, 38 seconds, you may now request one modification to the terms of service." Miles stood in the center of the restored hub, surrounded by all the kids who had helped him. In his inventory, he could hear faint voices from the character tokens, all the trapped players who had been transformed into game assets. "I know what I want," Miles said to the floating text. "I want all players who have been transformed into characters to be restored to human form. And I want all players currently trapped in this digital world to be given the choice to return to their real lives, with no consequences or retaliation." Request acknowledged, processing. Request approved. The effect was immediate. All around the map, character tokens began glowing and transforming back into people. Dragon Cannelloni became Jason, a teenage streamer with tears of joy on his face. Asoc Sokola became Ms. Rodriguez, a confused-looking teacher in her 30s. Dozens of other characters revealed themselves to be trapped children, teenagers, and even a few adults. "Thank you," Jason said, running up to Miles. "I thought I'd be stuck as a dragon forever." "How long were you trapped?" Miles asked. 8 months, Jason said. But it felt like years. Time moves so strangely when you're a character. Around them, the other kids were celebrating as friends who had been transformed were restored to human form. But Miles noticed that several of the original players, including Ghostface 12 and Brainrot Queen 6, were staying back. "Aren't you guys coming home?" Miles asked. The Ghostface 12 shook his head. "This place isn't all bad, Miles. Yeah, the viewer was manipulative and controlling, but some of us really don't have much to go back to." "What do you mean?" "My parents are getting divorced," Ghostface 12 explained. "They fight constantly, and I'm always caught in the middle. Here, I have friends, unlimited gaming time, and no family drama." Brainrot Queen 6 nodded. "My school life sucks. I get bullied every day, and my grades are terrible. Here, I can be whoever I want to be." Miles understood. The digital world wasn't just a prison. For some kids, it was an escape from problems they couldn't solve in real life. "But what about your families?" Miles asked. "Don't they miss you?" "The digital copies are still there," ProGamer99 explained. "As far as our families know, we're still playing games in our rooms like always. Some of our parents probably haven't even noticed we're gone." That was a depressing thought. But Miles realized it might be true. How many kids spent so much time online that their physical absence wouldn't be immediately obvious? "So what happens now?" Emma asked. "With the viewer gone, who runs this place?" "I do," ProGamer99 said. The system transferred administrative rights to the longest-serving player when the viewer was collected. "I can make this place actually fair. No more forced recruitment, no more transforming people into characters as punishment." "What about new players?" Miles asked. "Only volunteers," ProGamer99 promised. "And only after they fully understand what they're choosing. Plus, everyone gets the right to change their mind and leave whenever they want." Miles looked around at the group of kids. Some, like Emma, were eager to go home. Others, like Ghostface 12, wanted to stay. A few were undecided. "I think," Miles said slowly, "everyone should get to choose for themselves, as long as it's a real choice, with all the information and no pressure." A ProGamer99 nodded. "That's exactly what I was thinking. Want to help me set up the new rules?" Miles considered this. He could go back to his regular life, streaming, school, dealing with normal teenage problems. Or he could stay and help create a better version of this digital world, one that gave kids genuine choices and support. "Can I visit both worlds?" Miles asked. "Keep my regular life, but also help out here sometimes." "Now that we control the system?" "Absolutely." 6 months later, Miles sat in his regular bedroom, finishing up a stream of the normal version of Steal a Brainrot. His audience had grown to over 50,000 subscribers after his story about the weird glitch that happened during his overnight stream went viral. Of course, he couldn't tell the whole truth. Most people would never believe that a Roblox game had created an alternate reality populated by trapped children. But he'd made the story entertaining enough that it became legendary in the gaming community. "All right, chat, that's it for tonight," Miles said to his camera. "Remember to subscribe, and I'll see you tomorrow for more gaming content." After ending the stream, Miles opened a special app on his phone. One that looked like a normal game but was actually a portal to the reformed digital world that ProGamer99 now managed. He appeared in the familiar central hub, but it looked different now. Brighter, more welcoming, with clear signs explaining how the world worked and what choices visitors had. "Miles!" Emma ran up to him. She'd chosen to split her time between worlds too, spending weekdays in reality for school and weekends in the digital world playing with friends. "How's Whiskers?" Miles asked. "Getting fat from all the treats I give him when I get home," Emma laughed. "How's your stream going?" Good. I'm thinking about doing another overnight stream soon, but this time I'll actually just play the regular game. They walked through the hub together. The place was busier now, but in a healthier way. Kids could come and go freely, and there were adults present too, volunteers who helped make sure everyone was safe and happy. Ghostface 12 waved at them from his base. He'd chosen to stay full-time in the digital world, and he looked genuinely happy. His parents' divorce had finalized, and he'd decided this was better than being shuffled between two homes that didn't really want him. Any news from the viewer? Miles asked ProGamer99, who was now easily identified by the admin crown floating above her head. Still safely contained in character form, she replied. Sometimes I think about letting it out, but I'm not sure it learned anything from the experience. Miles nodded. They kept the viewer as a character token in a special secure area, just in case they ever needed its knowledge of the deeper system functions. But they'd all agreed it was too dangerous to release. Any new arrivals this week? Miles asked. 3, ProGamer99 said. 2 kids who were having serious problems at home, and 1 adult who studies virtual reality and wanted to experience this place firsthand. All voluntary, all fully informed about their choices. Good. Miles spent a few hours in the digital world, helping with various projects and playing games with the kids who lived there. It wasn't a perfect solution. Some children were still choosing to escape their problems rather than face them. But it was a much better situation than when the viewer was in control. Around midnight, Miles returned to his physical room. He had school tomorrow, and his parents were expecting him at breakfast. His real life was important too. But as he lay in bed, Miles thought about all the kids who were still trapped in various ways, by family problems, school stress, social anxiety, or other issues that made reality feel unbearable. The digital world, ProGamer99 managed could help some of them, but it wasn't a cure for everything. Maybe that was okay though. Maybe the important thing was that kids had choices and support, and people who cared about their well-being, whether they were in the physical world or the digital one. Miles fell asleep thinking about tomorrow's stream. He was planning to play a new game that had just come out, something about building space stations and exploring alien worlds. He just hoped this one wouldn't try to trap him in alternate realities. But if it did, well, he'd dealt with that before. The end.